Karen Roby here for Tech Republic and ZDNet. I'm happy today to be joined by Mark Testoni. Mark is the CEO of SAP NS2. Mark, thanks for being with me here today.
Karen, thanks for having me. I look forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. We're talking about STEM and how STEM, why STEM is being used or should be used by government agencies, when it comes to cybersecurity, Mark. So let's start first with the obvious, what STEM stands for, just as a refresher for some people that might need some reminding here, and why you feel like it should be an integral part going forward.
Well, Karen, I think it is part of the government and all of us in the private sector as well. STEM, beyond stem cells we hear about sometimes, the other STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. And a number of years ago, really the government and many educators and leadership in this country said, hey, we need to refocus and get back to basics and making sure that we're developing enough skill sets in this area with our youth and attracting people to these kind of applied areas versus everybody rushing off to be an artist and a lawyer and all the other great things, or whatever we all do. And so it's critically important. And as it relates to this, it's even more important in this world we're in now, the cyber world and the cybersecurity. I mean, technical skills are critical. And I think we have a responsibility in the private sector as well as government to inspire kids, younger people, and even adults who need to be reskilled to get into some of these disciplines. So this is really, really important in a lot of ways. The government does some things through Homeland Security in this area specifically. They've got a STEM children out, more of the student outreach in a program called CTAP that provides some resources to, where schools can get resources to support this. And they have another program they call NICS, N-I-C-C-S. It's a long acronym, but it basically is a resource for people to go to find where they can get training that's accredited in the area of cyber. So I think we're recognizing this at a level, and I think the government's participating, but I think we need to do much more.
And while it may seem, I think, obvious to why, a real focus on STEM should be involved when it comes to cybersecurity, it also seems some government agencies are resistant, hesitant to adopt new cybersecurity methods. Talk about that a little bit.
Government is like private sector. We're all in this kind of battle together. It's this challenge that we face, and this internet that came around in the late 80s, early 90s commercially, and it's created tremendous amount of wealth, as we all know. And it's been an industrial evolution, and now we're getting ready to go into 5G, and that's a whole nother set of industrial revolutions. So we're all in this trying to figure it out. I'm not sure we're all as coordinated as we should be at times, and work in collaboration between the private sector and government, although there have been some initiatives. A lot of it centers around Homeland Security, the cyber agency, CISA it's called, and there's been some good work done there. But I mean, this is critically important to us because I view cyber skills as life skills. And you can't translate being at home from being at work, because we all work or are employed either by the government or by a company or some other agency or activity. And we have to have the right hygiene to operate both at home and in our workplace. And we can't turn it off and do something at work and be different at home and vice versa, because everything is crossing over, particularly as we're seeing today in this work from home environment. So I think the government, like everyone, is trying to figure it out. There are places like NIST that have published standards on how companies should operate. But I think we need to do more on the education side as well. And we can talk about both if you'd like to go further.
Yeah, I was going to say, go ahead and delve into that a little bit, especially on the education front. And two, you mentioned COVID and the world we're living in now, how that has changed things and how we approach cybersecurity.
Well, let's go back. Well, I'll take a minute. Let's go back to the COVID thing, and then we can step backwards again. But so let's go back 8 or 9 months ago. A lot of these tools, this tool we're using today called Zoom, we used this stuff a little bit in the past. Microsoft Teams, there's a bunch of other ones. Slack has some things. We used them a little bit in collaboration. We really didn't. So what's happened in the last 8 or 9 months? We've probably done 2 to 5 years of digital transformation in 8 months, which means now even much more so are we dependent on these tools, which means we have to make sure that we're applying proper hygiene both in the infrastructures that we build, that's the technical aspect of it, and then with the people interacting, because ultimately people are always the weakest link in all this stuff, right? So we have to be able to address both, and education is really important. I'm a child of the 1960s and 70s. I don't think anybody, you probably were a little later than that, probably a lot later. But in the 1960s and 70s, we had a pollution problem in this country that was just unbelievably bad. Air, water, litter. And we had a lot of really good work facilitated by the government around public service announcements and we educated the public. Personally, I think we need to do some of the same here on the education side.
And when we talk about, and again in the COVID world and where we are right now, Mark, and we're just seeing it with the election, how vulnerable government agencies can be, and we're trying to protect so much precious data. What do you think are some of the biggest threats that we're facing right now? I mean, that's a pretty broad question when you talk about cybersecurity, but what concerns you the most?
I think probably the largest threat, and I'll tool that back into why STEM is important to that too, because I think it really is. The biggest threats that we have, I mean, there's state actors out there, and I don't think there's any great secret. We've been talking about China. Quite honestly, a lot of our intellectual property of our companies and the government are at risk. And so we need to be able to protect ourselves from state threats. There's also the criminal elements out there that operate. Some of those are backed by states that need hard. So and that leads itself to things like ransomware versus the actual theft. Why education is so important at the very earliest levels even is, first of all, we're going to need, I saw a study that said by the mid 2020s, we're going to need like 4 million cybersecurity people in jobs. So
yeah,
we need to get our kids interested in this. And at NS2, we're doing some things around that, and I can talk about that a little bit. But so that's really important. And so to be able to deal with these threats going forward, it's a combination of education. It's things like STEM, where we can get our kids interested, reskilling Americans that might need, that might be unemployed, that might have the ability to do this. And we've done some of this kind of work with veterans in a program that we had called NS2 Serves, where we reskilled them, basically, non-university educated veterans, and turned them into IT people. So we know that these programs can work. And I just think from a national level, we need to inspire more of this kind of work.
And do you think, I mean, compared to just a couple of years ago, Mark, do you think that we're doing better in general as far as getting kids to understand, or even parents to understand what direction to kind of maybe help guide their kids? You can talk to people that are in this business and understand tech to say, hey, listen, if you are involved in cybersecurity and you're educated, and I mean, you can write your ticket when it comes to a job and, really make great money and job security, all of that. Do you think we're doing a good job? Are we getting there?
That is a really good question. We are doing better. I think there's more awareness, but we absolutely need to do more. And it's not just about the government. The government needs to inspire, and maybe, across a variety of ways. You could talk about cybersecurity policy and all that, but they need to inspire and enable. But we're all in the community, okay? Our kids, I mean, I'm at an age where I'm worried about our kids and our grandkids. And are we still going to be the same United States of America that's a world leader? And this is an area that is critically important to that. So we need to inspire our kids. And ways that we can do that in the private sector are engaging the communities and schools. We're looking very hard, and we're working with some of the local districts here. We have a thing called NS2 Labs. This is an example of what can be done. And it's basically a platform where we bring our customers and partners in to work on things. We're also doing STEM programs, and we're starting to do STEM programs out of this, where we're reaching out to schools, particularly ones that are less privileged than some of the other ones, where we can bring students and engage them with our top technical people. Because what gets people interested in things is familiarity, right? So we need to create more awareness and familiarity. And even if all these kids don't go into the technical areas, They'll learn more about cyber. They'll learn more about the power of technology, where we're going to be headed, in the next 4 or 5 years or decade with 5G. I mean, I get so excited about it. It's one of the reasons I'm still in business. We're going to have things around us that make the transition we did back 12 years ago to smartphones look like they're like child's play. I mean, the things that are going to be happening around us with robotics and all this. So critically important that we do more, Karen. That's my message. A little bit of a long answer, but my message.
And when it comes to cybersecurity, right? I mean, things are it's scary, and with so many people working from home and all the changes and instability, it can be, we can be very vulnerable, and companies are.
We are, and I would say we need to treat the cyber can be a career for people, and we need to interest people in that. I mentioned there's a huge number of jobs available, and this could be some of that reskilling. But I go back to my comment about we need to have a kind of a little bit more national focus on education. Cybersecurity is a life skill, and it's going to be even more of one going forward in our new world. And you wouldn't want to put your family at security risk physically. You certainly don't want to do that, or your family, your company, or organization, you don't want to do that for yourself either. And awareness is key, and being curious enough. And as I said, we'll go back to all the campaigns we've done in this country: cigarette smoking cessation. You may be a little bit too young to remember that one. But pollution, we can do this if we put our minds to it and work together.
Yes, most definitely. And that's a great message to end on as well, Mark. I certainly appreciate you being with me, and a really enlightening conversation, and I was glad to be with you here today.
Karen, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. And this subject is from kids in school to working adults is so important. It's important to our country and its future. So thank you for reporting on this.
Most certainly. All right. We appreciate all of you watching us here today. For much more on cybersecurity, what you need to know, make sure you check out Tech Republic and ZDNet.